Again, like if you're noticing signs, you all have specific protocol for what to do in those situations, and so how do you make sure you're doing them equitably? And that's definitely in that harm to yourself category. So if you notice that, that is certainly reportable. Pro staff, do you have other things you want to throw in? Did we get some of the big ones?
Physical contact.
Physical contact. What, do you want to speak more to that?
Well, other than me being violent towards Amy a lot.
Just today.
Yeah, just interaction in sports and creating moments where you might be touching another person.
Right. Yes, so good game. Who here does intramurals? Does physical contact happen during a lot of our intramurals? Is it automatically groping? Can you tell the difference?
Yes.
Great. So if you would report any of that physical contact, how would you do that equitably? Other things? All right, cool. So we talked a little bit about this. How do you get some of that language together? So if someone comes up to you and is like, hey, I really want to talk to you about something that's been happening with me, how can you be ready to go, hey, thanks so much for coming to me. Just as a reminder, I do have to report some things to UNC as part of my job. That includes sexual misconduct or harm to yourself or others. And so we can absolutely talk about that. But if you would rather talk to a confidential resource first, I'm happy to help get you connected with them. Yeah?
Is that just while you're working, or is that all the time?
That is all the time. Your hat does not come off. Yeah?
And it's something we tell all of our student leaders too, is...
Okay. These handoffs are kind of awkward. This applies to all student employees too, so like RAs, desk assistants, student employees in other offices, dining, like we have to give this briefing to dining. I would even recommend maybe putting something on social media or letting your friends know, because there may be instances where people who you are close with, you're the one that asked the question, right? I'm looking at you and okay, that's always awkward if like you didn't ask the question and like that guy needs to stop staring at me. Okay, you can make a post on social media, you can let your friends know, but there are going to be instances where this may come up in casual conversation on a weekend when you're not working at the university, but you are still technically, you have that hat on. Unfortunately, that red shirt doesn't come off. Is anybody here an ASAP advocate? No, we don't run into any of that. There is some overlapping circles with that, so if you are an ASAP advocate, while you are an ASAP advocate, you would be statutorily barred from sharing that information, but when you are outside that circle, that student employee hat comes back on. So, I would recommend a social media post and just letting your friends know up front. How many of you have done that in the past, that have worked, that have been student employees? How have you addressed it? Does anybody have a good example, maybe? Like, hey, I just want to let my friends know. No good examples? No? A half hand in the back? No?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Have you had anyone do that?
Have we had anybody make a social media post? Yeah. I mean, it's something that we recommend. I don't know that, I can't tell you if anybody's done it or not. So,
I feel like a student threw that out to us.
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember what session it was in, but like that wasn't something I came up with. This is some great idea. Like some student said that this is how they chose to manage it as soon as they got hired on campus. I also think like you don't need to be that rigid about it if that's not comfortable for you, right? Like I want you to be transparent, because being transparent is how we are supportive, and however you are transparent about that. And again, it's so that the person who's choosing to share with you knows what they're getting into, right? Like we want to be as transparent as possible. Whatever feels good for you to convey that, I think is fine with us, right? It's not a rigid thing. It's how do you make sure that that person feels cared for, and imagine how uncared for they will feel if they tell you this whole story and then you go, by the way, I get to tell my boss that, rug out from underneath. So that's what I want to avoid. Do it how it feels good to you.
That feel good?
Yeah. So once we receive a report, we will reach out. Here is basically how we want you to respond if you are in that situation. And so again, be transparent about having to report. And again, reporting may be to us, it may be to your supervisors. I would say in most student staff positions, they choose to talk to their professional staff, and professional staff take on like getting in contact with our office. That's totally fine. The other thing is you all can always report anonymously through our website or through mysafecampus.com. And so for some reason you're like, ooh, this doesn't feel safe to me to give it to my supervisor, you can absolutely submit it online anonymously. If someone is telling you about something that they've experienced related to sexual misconduct, we really want to be sure to use words and questions from a non-judgmental perspective. And to be totally honest, there are probably only 2 or 3 questions that you need, and they are, what can I do to help? Can I get you some water? What can I do to help? Maybe again. Like, it's not your job to investigate, it's not your job to get to the bottom of it, it's certainly not your job to critique why whatever happened, because that's really outside of your role and it can be really hurtful to people. Provide those confidential resources we talked about, and then also share the right to report to law enforcement if that person wants to. And the reason that's on there is because, so, how many of us have been like, we've had the worst day ever, and we've told one of our friends that we've had the worst day ever. Oh, I've had the worst day ever. And then your friend is like, yeah, well, this and this and this happened to me today. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't have the worst day ever. They had the worst day ever. No matter what has happened, it can be really affirming for someone to hear, hey, do you want to talk to the police about that? It sounds pretty serious. Because I think most of us have this like, well, this thing happened to me and it's bad, but it's not as bad as what happened to so-and-so. Like, this can be really, again, affirming and positive. Here's the list of don'ts. Please don't meet with parties in an effort to mediate. Please don't ask anyone to keep silent about an incident, and please don't investigate the situation on your own. There's 2 reasons for this. Number 1 is because that can be really super unsafe and scary. So if I feel like Jimmy is stalking me, the solution is probably not, hey, let's all sit down in a room together and talk about it, right? Because I'm going to be like, whoa, no way. I don't want to be close to him at all. The second thing is if you all take this on, it really eliminates the due process protections for the person that's accused. And so everyone is entitled to notice an opportunity throughout an investigative process if that's the route that's being pursued. And so by doing this and being like, Jimmy, come on in and defend yourself, whoa, like totally not okay. So please don't do these things. Yeah?
What if both parties come to you and like tell their side of the story?
Yeah, so if both parties come to you and tell their side of the story, assuming that it is something that is needed to be investigated under university policy, the most likely thing that will happen in that scenario is you would submit your report, and then those folks would come into our office and speak with us independently. When individuals are involved in our process, they never have to be face-to-face or together. Like, we do separate meetings, and we would likely call you in as a witness. And basically that is just, hey, can you tell us what you're aware of related to this situation? And the other thing is people can share as much or as little as they choose to. Like, we reach out and say, hi, we'd like to hear from you. But with very few exceptions, we can't compel people to do anything. Does that help? Other questions about sort of our response or your response? Cool. So here is the slide summarizing a bunch of our resources available. So we talked about confidential support through ASAP counseling and psych services. Again, My Safe Campus is just an anonymous reporting link. It's not like resources or someone you can call. You can also report to UNC Police. If you're reporting directly to our office, there is the contact information for Larry Lofton, our Title IX coordinator. Our website, we're on the 3rd floor of the UC. That's our phone number. And again, once a report's filed, we start looking into it to see how we can stop, remedy, and prevent. That's the whole goal of what we're trying to do. So this is why it matters and why I'd like to think we get invited back year after year to do this presentation with you all. It's because we want to make sure that you all know that if something happens, you're not in it alone. There's lots of folks on campus who can help you in terms of providing resources. You need to look out for each other too, because I think a lot of times when we do student staff presentations, people are like, oh, if someone comes to me with this, and then you sort of forget that like you also are entitled to these protections. And so how do you notice what's going on in your workplace, and is that healthy, and is it safe? And if it's not, there are things you can do about it. And there are folks you can talk to. So, any last questions? Did everyone sign in? No?
Not yet.
Okay, we're working on it. Is it still moving? And then Jimmy's handing out a quick questionnaire we have for you all. So if you could fill that out for us, that would be great. And we will stick around for a couple minutes if you have solo questions for us. Thank you all so much. Welcome back. Happy school year.